Happy holidays, everyone. From Beech Grove High School, welcome to BGTV, and it's time for our monthly visit with Beech Grove Mayor Dennis Buckley. First of all, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year in advance, and welcome back to Beech Grove City Schools.
Merry Christmas to you.
Well, a lot of things going on. People think maybe under the misconception that things slow down a little bit during the holidays, maybe things slow down a little bit during the winter months for city government. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. I guess it's a good problem to have. Is it going to be a challenge in 2015 to make it better overall for the city than 2014 was?
No, this year, 2014, has been a year that I haven't seen since I've been associated with the city for over 30 years. What was accomplished and what was done this year is unbelievable. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like this year as far as the amount of money that was invested in this city and the amount of work that's been done this year. But I think next year can even be better, especially from an infrastructure standpoint. And I'm looking forward to it. Today, or not today, but this winter, we prepare for the spring and summer. So we'll have all of the logistics out of the way over the next couple of months, and then when the weather breaks in March, we'll be able to go again, and we've set ourselves up to do a lot more work next year, so I suspect it could be a lot better.
Let's talk a little bit about some projects that are front and center. Certainly for those of you that either enter or exit the Beech Grove campus off of Churchman. That project, I don't know that I have seen, and maybe below the surface on what the layperson could see, maybe there were, it had its share of issues and problems, but boy, from start to finish, when the first spade shovel was turned, it seemed like the Safe Schools program with the new sidewalk installation across the creek, connecting it essentially to the Horner Park Community Center, it seemed like a pretty trouble-free project. It
went very smooth. We had a inspection crew of engineers and consultants that did a really good job of monitoring the work. The company that did the work has done well, and they're working as we speak. So it's just really good. That's a good program. The schools have been talking about this for a long time, and it's finally done. So I'm happy with it. A lot of people in both government, in terms of city government, and also Beech Grove City Schools, work together to come up with the funding through grant programs and whatnot. I mean, this wasn't something that a lot of money was taken out of general funds or construction funds by either the city or the school corporation. No, it was a federal grant through what they call the MPO. And I think we were awarded somewhere around $460,000, and then we had to do a 20% match. And we split it down the middle with the school system. The school couldn't apply for the funding. The city had to apply for the funding, but it affects the schools, right? Which, as far as I'm concerned, that's great. Sure. And we've made a vast improvement over a short period of time. So. And we're going to continue to do some more work, so it's good. Can we get you to weigh in on our community service day that we completed a couple of weeks ago? I was absolutely blown away, Mayor. Absolutely blown away. I got some of the calls I got were unbelievable from people, especially elderly people who couldn't do that, and the kids would come and rake their yard and pick up trash, and it instilled new faith in older people who I think maybe have lost a little faith in society. That's really good. That's almost a verbatim quote from one of the residents that we talked to. Yeah. She said, "I thought this day and time was gone." Yeah, and it was so good. And we still get calls from students wanting to do more hours. Yeah. And I think next spring they're going to do it again, and I'm really looking forward to it. Well, for those of you that might be quote-unquote late to the dance, we had a community service day here at Beech Grove High School a few weeks ago, and we fanned over 900 students out in an orchestrated effort throughout this community
to perform community service in various tasks, and not only residents but businesses and nonprofit organizations received assistance from everyone from our principal Steve Cox to freshmen and sophomores, and it's part of now a requirement on the part of Beech Grove City Schools that you must complete 20 hours of community service per year until, of course, you graduate at the end of 4 years. I think it's a tremendous program. Well, we talk about new programs. We talked about the groundbreaking and the completion of the Safe Schools. The growth continues here in Beech Grove. Let's talk about some of the more significant efforts, a groundbreaking on the area over by the police station.
We broke ground for a senior community about a month or so ago, and I noticed yesterday that now some of the survey stakes are in the ground, so I suspect they're getting closer. Our friends out at the gas plant, Kinetrix, continue to invest millions of dollars in the city. We're working with a company that's in the process of purchasing the hospital property. So all of those things are going on, and we continue to apply for funding to make the infrastructure of our city better. So we'll hear soon on another sidewalk project out on Churchman Avenue, and we hope we're successful on that. But I think one more thing, there's so many things that are going on you forget sometimes. Sure. And our public works director's here today, and I think he can go into more detail with you with that. But we're getting ready to do a sign replacement program, and probably after the first of the year, they're going to replace almost 2,000 signs in the city of Beech Grove, and I think that itself will clean the city up. So you have all these tangibles going on. It's just so much better. Yeah. And
we have discussed that sign project before when you first took that on. You know, what's the big deal about signs? Well, I think what you're looking for is uniformity. You want to eliminate the duplication of some placement of signs and just give it a better look aesthetically and a more effective use in terms of traffic flow throughout the city.
Yeah, it'll clean the city up substantially. So those are all good things. Those are all federal dollars that you and I pay in our taxes. So why don't we get that money back?
Sure.
So it's good.
Now, there's one aspect of your job that I think more than any other perhaps would prevent a lot of people from being heavily involved in politics to the point of wanting to be a mayor of a city of any size, and that's the budgeting process. That has to be a very daunting task. Now, let's face it, once upon a time, and your experience with the fire department, that probably helped prepare you for the budget process and how to formulate one and then follow one and make all the changes necessary. But let's just talk a little bit about where we stand on the budget process in terms of getting the city ready financially for 2015.
Well, the City Council approved the budget back in October for next year. It's fully funded, balanced, and we borrow less money now to run the government than we did 3 years ago. So that's a good indicator. And for people who own business, the tax rate in Beech Grove for this year is $1.59 a thousand. Next year, that decreases by 9 cents. So the tax rate for next year is $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed valuation.
Right.
And our budget went up over $800,000. So what we're doing is we made a commitment that we're going to get away from property taxes as much as we can and focus more on fees. So now with these new fees in place, we could do more things as a city and budget better. The budget now is much better than it was 3 years ago, and I think next year is really going to be good. The last Board of Works meeting, we ordered to start the process to buy another fire engine, started the process to buy another ambulance, started the process to purchase 25 new laptop computers for the police cars, started the process to purchase 4 more police vehicles and 1 vehicle for the senior center, and then at the next meeting we're going to talk about starting the process to buy a hot patch machine, which will benefit the city schools as well as the city of Beech Grove. So all of these things are going on, and it's because we budget right. Mm-hmm. And It's not that we have a lot more money, it's just what do we do with the money that we have?
Well, let's go back and retrace our steps real quickly, because you know how people sometimes are skeptical of government. Okay, I heard that word fees, that means taxes. Well, let's explain exactly what fees we're talking about and how they're not necessarily taxes, but they're user-based fees that people need to understand. There's a cost of doing business, a cost to provide goods and services, and that's one of the ways to make sure you maintain a quality infrastructure for those goods and services is through user fees.
One of the fees that we had to address as soon as I was mayor, it was the sanitary sewer fees. They hadn't been raised in 9 years. So not only were we not working on the sewer system, we were going bankrupt. So now we changed the fees back in 2012 or 2013. Now it's given us revenue to start to do work, and now we're not robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and we can focus on sewer work. And we went from the sanitary sewer rates, we established stormwater sewer rates, which is $1.50 a month. And all of these things add up. Now we have funds to complete projects and make the infrastructure of the city better. And I consider that to be good government.
No question.
And we're going to continue to do that. And I've told people repeatedly, they say, you know what, the city's much better than it was 3 or 4 years ago. And I said, it's better than it was 3 or 4 years ago, but 5 years from now, it's really going to be good.
Yeah.
Because all of these things come into play. All of these investments that people are making now, when they get through tax credits and abatements and all this stuff, they will go on the tax rolls and they will pay taxes to better fund schools, better fund the library, and better fund the city. And that's all you can ask.
The long-term impact of the renovation and redevelopment along Main Street, all of the work that was done there, I don't think that there's any way that we're going to be able to accurately gauge the return on the investment in terms of economic development that will easily, over the next 15 to 25 years, run into the millions. Am I overstating?
No.
That? Because let's face it, if someone's coming to your office to talk to you about development opportunities, they're going to be a lot more impressed with the city driving down Main Street now than they would have been 5 years ago.
Yes. And I said it and before, and I'll say it again, that's probably the most important thing that I've done since I was mayor.
And by the way, I'm not your campaign manager, and I don't have a vote because I don't live here. You know, I'm just speaking from experience and what I've seen in my time here at Beech Grove. And let's bridge that into the importance of getting that St. Francis Hospital property redeveloped, which is something you worked tirelessly on. I
met yesterday with a guy who wants to bring his business to Beech Grove. When he come to meet with me, he saw Main Street. And that happened, that repeats itself. These people who want to come in and invest money in Beech Grove, in order to get to my office, they have to come down Main Street.
Right.
And they all say verbatim, it's beautiful down here.
Yeah, no question. So feel pretty good about the budget process and how that, I don't think people understand how closely you have to work with your department heads and the council for everybody. Everybody has an opinion. So, you know, you don't get everything that you want. They don't get everything that they want. Was this the biggest level in terms of that process? The last time we talked, it seemed to go fairly effortlessly. So that's a great working relationship, which oftentimes is hard to achieve in city government.
It is, and you bring in department heads to run their departments. You know, I'm not going to run the police department. I'm not going to run public works. I'm not going to be the parks director. There's people that can do that, and I have to step away from that. My job is to support and get them money to do what they need to do, and that's a misconception about how government works. The mayor shouldn't do that stuff. Right. The mayor should work on funding, and I think you'll hear that here in a minute, but if you want to do it right, that's how you do it. You don't micromanage your department heads.
Well, congratulations on a great 2014, and we hope that you'll be able to accept the challenge that you've issued to yourself and your city to make 2015 even better. And when we get back together at the end of January, we can start to talk more about that.
Very good. It is a pleasure being here today.
Mayor Dennis Buckley, and as you heard him say, Brian Merriweather is the director of the Board of Public Works. And for those of you that may not know exactly what that term means and what all is involved, we're going to answer that question for you and many, many more when he joins us here in studio in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back. I'm Mark Janes, continuing to discuss your government here in the city of Beech Grove. We have Brad Merriweather with us, not Brian Merriweather, as I mistakenly referred to him as before we went to the break. He is the director of the Board of Public Works here in the city of Beech Grove. We thank you for stopping by and talking to us. Happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays.
As I've speculated, you hear Board of Public Works. One of those governmental terms that a lot of people might not be aware of exactly what it is that the Board of Public Works does. So we're going to give you an opportunity to explain that now, if you would.
Sure. Department of Public Works basically services the sewers, the streets, the trash. We are the ones that come out, pick your trash up, fill your potholes, service the sanitary sewers, the storm sewers. So we're a little bit of a catch-all, but we do, I think, a lot of important things, and I think the residents overall really appreciate what we do.
Yeah, well, I hope you get phone calls to that end, because those aren't services that typically people call and pay compliments about.
Right.
If there's a problem, if there's something wrong somewhere, you find out about it pretty quickly, I'm guessing.
True.
So now, let's explain a little bit about that process. Potholes, trash pickup, problems like that. Where do people go if they have an issue with that sort of thing, and how ideally, I'm sure there's a system of checks and balances in place. How quickly do you like to see those problems addressed?
Yeah, luckily being a relatively small city, we are pretty accessible. People generally know where we are. They can reach us. Our main number is 803-9098. Most people have that number handy.
Speed dial.
Right, on speed dial for sure. And then we're located just east of the high school, so we even have people that will come out, stop in, and say hey, or tell us, if they've seen something that's going on. But we've also got a nice website that have, links available where people can report a pothole, actually email the mayor's call center, email myself. So I think there's plenty of opportunities for people when they have something that they're concerned with, whether it be trash, pothole, their sewers, where they can call those numbers, email the proper people, me being one of those, and usually we're out real quick. I mean, we deal with the insurance a lot. We don't have a lot of people that hurt their cars, but occasionally it happens, a couple times a year maybe, and they're usually amazed that when they've taken a picture of a pothole, within probably a day, it's filled.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, so we get out pretty quick.
Well, some people love snow. I'm not one of them. I don't mind a little bit of snow on Christmas Day, but if I woke up the next morning and it was sunny and 75, I would be thrilled to death. I don't know, being old enough to remember the blizzard of '78. I don't know that I ever remember a more difficult set of circumstances than we faced here in central Indiana last year with the winter that we had. You did the post-mortem, I'm sure, on that. As adequately prepared as you were, I don't think anyone anywhere was truly prepared for the amount of snow that we got. But let's give people a little insight into the fact that the thing that was different, I think, about this past winter, Brad, not only did we get 6-7 inches of snow, but behind that, temperatures were oftentimes hovering in the single digits to below zero, and they just haven't come up with anything that will effectively melt that snow under those conditions.
Yeah. The salt that we use is called treated salt, and it has an agent combined with it that allows it to work at a little lower temperatures, but once you get below 20 into the teens, nothing really works at that point. So yeah, there's a lot of urgency when the temperatures are high enough that allow you to clear the streets, because once it freezes, whatever freezes is staying there. So yeah, it definitely adds another element to it, a time element where you really work hard to get it out when you can. But last winter was a huge challenge. I've been here 8 or 9 years now, and that was by far the worst winter snow-wise. Obviously, everybody's aware of that I've dealt with.
NDOT, it seems like over the past few years, have taken about the task of getting ahead of the storm and doing some sort of pre-treatment. dealing probably with a little heftier budget situations that allows them to do that. How much has that changed in terms of a science, and as you suggested, 7 or 8 years that you've been involved in snow removal here in the city of Beech Grove?
Well, by purchasing the treated salt, we are able to go out early and pre-treat the roads with it, and because of that, and that's that green color that you see,
Yeah.
it does allow the roads to stay basically wet. It keeps that ice from bonding, and so it gives us an opportunity, and a lot of times it might eat up the first half-inch to inch of a snowstorm, depending on how much you put down and how frequently you're treating the roads. But then at some point it becomes plowable, and then at that point, you know, basically it's just a matter of dropping plows and getting it off the roads. But yeah, there are some, Indianapolis sometimes will go out with a brine mixture and pre-treat the roads with that. What we put down really does a pretty good job, and overall we've been happy with that.
Was it a budget buster for you? I mean,
it was this last winter, I think, busted a lot of budgets, but we did a nice job. Our guys really stepped up, worked a lot of extra hours. I had to give some of those hours back to them this summer, which they enjoyed because they got some nice days off. So that worked out well for them. But it was a long winter. I think obviously the mayor's great to work with, and the council. They moved some money around so that we could recoup our salt. I mean, I usually bid. We bid through the state of Indiana. It's called One Indiana, and a lot of communities are involved. It allows us to get a better price bidding as a group. And I usually bid about 600 to 700 tons of salt. Last year, I went through all of that and any additional that I could get my hands on. So we used probably closer to 1,000, 1,200 tons. So yeah, it was definitely a dramatic winter compared to the norm. And we've recovered, but it definitely put a dent in the salt budget, that's for sure.
So now the challenge is to not overcompensate and load up on salt going into this season. Are you going to stick with what typically in most years is an effective amount, that 600 to 700 range, or are you going to, just to be on the safe side, bump that up maybe a little bit?
That amount usually works well for us when we have salt on hand going into the winter months. This winter I had an empty barn, so when I put my bid in, I did go higher, and then I initially purchased salt as soon as I could, just to fill that barn up, because as we found out this year, you never know how quickly it's going to snow, and by Thanksgiving we had been out salting roads already, because we had, you know, a measurable snow, I think 2.5 inches.
Well, here's an idea I'd like, maybe you could pitch it to Mayor Buckley. The late Lee Larison was one-term mayor in Terre Haute back in the 70s, and during the blizzard, he said, God put it there and God will take it away. So if you want to save some money, try to sell that philosophy to Mayor Buckley when it comes to snow removal, and let me know how the residents burn up your phone and your websites and stuff for that. So yeah, that's a necessary evil of doing business, folks, and it's something they have to take care of each and every year. The residual effect, unfortunately, of a harsh winter, it just absolutely is close to ruination in terms of city streets. So how ambitious of an undertaking, how difficult of a year was it to go around in summertime and fix all of those issues created by all that wintry weather?
Yeah, it definitely creates a new set of issues. We had some roads, North 8th is a good example, where really wasn't even on our radar. It was in pretty good shape until that winter, and then it buckled, and by the end of the winter, that was our worst road. And luckily, Mayor Buckley, he budgets well for paving, which is something that I've wanted for a long time. So you have that money there to work with, and then he's flexible, knowing that we've got a list, but that list could change, and that list did change this year. There were some roads that bumped up just because of how they looked when the winter was over, and so you can see on North 8th it's been paved, and that's our goal, is when a road falls apart like that, really becomes a public safety hazard.
Sure.
And not just for the residents, but for our firemen and our policemen. You try to go in and fix it as quick as possible, and luckily we have money each year to do that. So.
What's the line of communication like with utilities? I hope it's pretty good. I know I lived in a rural area for a number of years, and the thing that always dumbfounded me is the county would come along and they would pave a road, and within 2 to 3 weeks, the utility company would come along and make a cut in that road. And that doesn't add to the long-term life of that particular. Now, sometimes situations happen. There may be something with the utility underneath that street that you didn't anticipate. But is it a coordinated effort when you're going to do a project like that? Do you try to interact with utilities and let them know, look, if you guys are going to change something, now's the time to do it?
Yeah, and North 8th is really a great example of that. Citizens wanted to come and replace the water main. We had communicated with them that that was a road that had definitely jumped up on our radar. It was definitely a road we wanted to reconstruct. So we worked hand in hand with them to coordinate the water main work and the paving when it was over, so that exactly that didn't happen. You know, we go in, pave it, they come in and tear it up.
Right.
And there's nothing that looks crazier to a resident than wondering why we couldn't have worked together to make that, you know, a little more seamless. And I think we have a good relationship with citizens and with some of the other utilities, and we've worked well trying to make sure that doesn't happen.
How about what's the assessment in terms of our sidewalk? What's that inventory like? Were we pleased with what we did this year, and are there plans to do more?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Safe Routes to School was a huge project that got done. That was, you know, started in '05 as an attempt to provide opportunities for children to bicycle, to walk to school. We had some gaps in our infrastructure where sidewalks ended in places where it really shouldn't. So that was a great grant to get and partnered with Beach Grove Schools, and that filled some gaps that now have made it a lot easier for kids to get where they need to go. We've got high hopes for the future. As the mayor mentioned, we've got a big project that I think is going to happen. We've applied for, and it looks like we're going to get funding for some Churchman Avenue sidewalks. If you go down Churchman between Emerson and Arlington, you consistently see people in the roads, and it's a problem. And we knew it was a problem, and Mayor Buckley's taking steps now to try to resolve that, and I look forward to that project.
You, along with the mayor, have to be awfully pleased with the cooperative effort between the school corporation and Beach Grove City Schools for that state school sidewalk project. I got to admit, I certainly am in no way, shape, or form an expert in terms of contracting and engineering and things of that nature, but boy, the crew that handled that installation sure seemed to have their stuff together from A to Z.
Yeah, they did. We had a good contractor, and then we also had a good engineering firm that inspected the work, and between the two, I think they've turned out a top-notch product.
And I don't think people are aware of the fact that there are a lot of agencies that are involved when you're dealing with construction as it pertains to a waterway like that creek that went over. That could be a daunting task sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about your equipment inventory. Obviously, you have regular maintenance, but how did we do? Did we bring new equipment on board this year, and what does the fleet look like, and what's on your wish list for 2015?
Yeah, we've really shored up since 2012. Mayor Buckley got in. One of the big things he talked to me about initially was, what do you need? You know, what do you need to do the jobs that you guys have to do? And so we purchased trash trucks that year. We replaced a 1991 and a 1995 trash truck. And so that eliminated a huge burden off me because they were constantly breaking down. So we have 2 new trash trucks. The next year, we bought a couple of big 550 dump trucks with plows and spreaders, which really helped our salting efforts, graveling alleys, things like that. They're really nice, heavy-duty work trucks. This year, we bought a new skid steer, which we'd wanted for a long time. We had a loader, but it was really oversized for a lot of what we needed. When we load salt and do some small projects, whether it's with sidewalks or in the park, having that skid steer has made it a lot better. So we bought that this year. And then the leaf program is something that I think the residents really appreciate. And we had a couple of leaf machines, again, going back to the 90s. We had a 92 and a 94. So we finally bought a new leaf machine this year, have plans to buy another one next year to replace those old ones. And that has made a huge difference because you can imagine in 20 years there's been a lot of safety improvements. The tubes that the guys use are much lighter and stronger. So, you know, in 20 years they make a lot of improvements to equipment. So it was nice to get something new.
Now, for people my age and older, I think there are going to be changes on the horizon in terms of trash pickup and removal that we're going to need to adjust to whether we want to or not. For a younger generation, it might not be as big of an adjustment. But I think those days of just throwing everything into one trash bag and setting it out at the curb, no matter what it is, are long gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another thing that the mayor established was some collection fees when we have, one of the problems we were running into was somebody would maybe move out of a house or something and they would just clear out the place and set it at the curb and expect to have that picked up like the average resident who just puts their tote out.
Right.
And so there had to be something put into place where we had a mechanism to equal that out. If you're going to put out that much trash, you should pay a little extra.
Sure.
And we have that now, and we do that. And so when someone puts out, you know, building materials or they tear a shed down and want to stick that out, they have that option. They just have to pay extra because ultimately we have to pay to get rid of it.
Well, and I would imagine, though, doing so, it's more cost effective for them than having somebody haul it away or take it to a dump themselves.
Yeah, it's still a pretty good deal.
Yeah, so what about recycling in terms of glass, paper, plastic, things of that nature? What's on the horizon there?
That's definitely something that's exciting. We haven't been very good stewards in the past and really involved recycling, but that's something that I think is next on the mayor's agenda, and we're looking at partnering with someone to do recycling throughout the city, which I think is exciting in a lot of ways. I mean, ultimately it's being, like I mentioned, a better steward of the earth and the things that we have, and disposing of them in a way that makes sense so they can be reused. And then it helps us because it takes some of that trash off of us, and that trash would then go to whoever ends up getting that piece of the contract. But
you made several references during our time together to Mayor Buckley, and speaking positively of the working relationship that you have with him. I know as a longtime coach, it's so very, very important to have an administration like we have here at Beech Grove. Dr. Kaiser's been a coach, Dr. Keeley's been a coach, Steve Cox has been a coach, all of those guys. So when you deal with people like that in administration that have been in your shoes, in an area like that, they can speak your language, and there's a level of comfort that exists. How valuable do you think it is, as the Director of Board of Public Works, to have someone in charge as a mayor who actually was a city employee and knows a lot about the issues that you face, having been with the fire department for a number of years?
Sure, it's huge. And it's like you mentioned, they bring a wealth of knowledge about what you deal with, and so there's an understanding that's brought to the table when you speak to them, whether it's about your needs or the things that you're struggling with or attempting to get done. There's a real camaraderie there. There's not this disconnect that maybe they've never been there or done your job. They have, and they know what that's like.
Sure.
And so I think there's an enormous amount of respect there. There's the ability to communicate maybe on another level that's not there when that's not the case. So yeah, it's always easier to talk to somebody that knows where you're coming from, and it's been a huge benefit for me. I think the department appreciates it. I know those guys have a huge amount of respect for Mayor Buckley, and a lot of it is because they realize he appreciates what they do, and they know that. He's made that clear to them, and that goes a long way with people.
Well, it's a tried and true statement that's made. And again, I don't have a dog in this hunt. I mean, I work for the school corporation, and I understand how important it is, but I'm not a resident here. I've just been around politics and whatnot for a number of years. And the question is simple. Is Beech Grove better off now than it was the day he got into office? And don't ask him.
Yeah.
Drive around and ask yourself. So I think that's where the answer comes from, and that's fact. So before we let you go, one more time, website, phone number, people have any questions at all about any of the things that we discussed. You want to give those to us one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. They can call 317-803-9098. It's our general number out there. There's a Mayor's Call Center link on the website, email. My email is brad, brad.merriweather, MERIWETHER @beechgrove.com. You can email me directly. I think that's one great thing about our departments. We're not hidden behind closed doors. We're open and accessible. I have people walk in all the time. And our goal is to make things better and to fix problems. And so if people have them, that's our goal. We're not going to run from those people. In fact, we're excited to see them. And our goal when we see them is to get to know who they are, what they're dealing with, and hopefully over time, make their lives a little better.
Well, I think over the past few years that I've been here, our relationship with the city of Beech Grove has continued to grow and expand. And one of the ways we want to continue to do that is from this point forward, we have a lot of outlets here. We're on local cable, and we also have YouTube, and we broadcast here to the school each and every day. So feel free to use us as a conduit to get the word out through public service announcements about recycling, tree removal, whatever the case may be. Our door's always open. You're certainly welcome back anytime.
All right.
All right.
You.
Happy holidays to you. Great job.
Happy holidays.
Again, thanks to Mayor Dennis Buckley, the mayor of the city of Beech Grove, for getting Brad Merriweather here. He is, of course, the Director of Public Works here in the city of Beech Grove. Production provided by Wiley Craft. I'm Mark James. Happy holidays, and so long for now.